York Jets organization, sorry as hell. Been sorry as hell since Mark Sanchez left. And he was sorry. Let's get to it. We have a problem. What's going on? Jaron DSB. And we got Zach Wilson on the docket right here. But not just him, the Jets' whole organization, because they are trash. Like, comment, subscribe. Definitely comment and let me know what we got to do with this organization. How do we throw them all the way in the garbage? I'm not going to shit on the players because they're clearly in the Jets organization just cogs in this terrible machine that is just ruining young players and wasting careers. And where careers go to die. Zach Wilson, his first year in the league, 13 games played, 113 completions, 55.6 completion percentage, 2,334 yards, 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Second year, played almost half those games. He played 9, 132 completions, 54.6 completion percentage, 6 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And so far this year, through 3 games, 44 completions, 52.4 completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, that Jets offensive line is sorry. That's just what it is. When you watch the Jets play, since Zach Wilson came in, since Sam Darnold got there before him, there's no time to throw this ball back there. I don't know what you expect a quarterback to do when, as soon as his eyes come off the first read, his second read is a defensive end or a defensive tackle already in his lap. No productivity when that happens. Not making excuses for Zach Wilson, but that's just been his reality for the past 3 years. He don't got time to make the read. So when he has time to make reads, he's reading way too fucking long. That's one. We're going to start there. Trash offensive line. That's on the organization. You got to bring in guys that better fit your scheme. There's no reason bad offensive line play should be a constant problem. Like for years. A problem I asked talking about Zach Wilson last year was, who does he have to work with as an offensive mind? Who's there to mold this young offensive mind to what the NFL is all about? They liked what they saw in college. They liked it enough to draft him in the first round. Now you got to put the pieces in place to bring him along properly. Not just throwing him into the fire and seeing if he survives. So when he gets there, his offensive coordinator is Mike LaFleur, brother of Matt LaFleur. Mike, prior to this, has minimal offensive coaching experience. Just looking at that. His mind for developing a young quarterback essentially isn't there because he himself is a relatively new coach. So putting him in Zach Wilson's hands, I don't think was good for either party. Nevertheless, after Zach Wilson's failures, the offensive coordinator lands on his feet and gets another job. He working for the Rams now. His new offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, wasn't brought in to help develop him at all. He was brought in to help Aaron Rodgers. He's Aaron Rodgers' guy, as was Randall Cobb, as was Alan Lazard when they brought him in. It's everybody versus Zach Wilson. At least in his head, I'm sure that's how he's looking at it. And rightfully so. I can't blame him. What I feel like he does, we're all looking at him play. This is his third year. His third year of feeling this way, mind you. I'm sure he came in feeling this way because we gonna get into it. Stay with me a little longer. So Mike LaFleur, as far as offensive coordinators are concerned, he has an idea of what a high-powered or a good offense should look like, not necessarily how to develop it or coach it. He was down in Atlanta with Matt Ryan and Julio, 2015-2016. Jimmy Garoppolo in San Fran, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. And then Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco, and now he's got Matt Stafford in LA. So he's been around prior to Zach Wilson. The only scenario that he saw success from wasn't one he had helped develop or coach. And then we expected him to bring along this young quarterback, our first round pick, but he himself hasn't necessarily shown that he's an offensive mind. He was given an opportunity. And Zach Wilson failing, he failed. You got to call it like it is. His QB coach, Rob Calabrese, also minimal coaching experience. he himself was almost a quarterback in the league during the COVID year. He was also expected to bring Zach Wilson along. You're giving these young guys to young coaches, both trying to prove themselves, but necessarily aren't really savvy to how things work just yet. Let's move on. The offensive line, it's been a problem for a while. 2021, as a team, they ran for 1,667 yards. 2022, 1,686 yards. And so far, in 2023, they ran for 274 yards. In the offseason, they added Dalvin Cook. Offensive line, so far, Zach Wilson is averaging 3.4 sacks a game. How many games are left in the season? 18 games, 15. On pace for 60 sacks. Let's look at the receivers. What production are we getting out of the receiving corps? 2021, Elijah Moore, he was their top receiver. 500 receiving yards on the year. Hated Zach Wilson's guts, demanded to be traded. Traded him to Cleveland. 2022, Garrett Wilson finished with 1,103 yards. Their second receiver, the tight end Tyler Conklin, he finished the season with 552 yards. In the offseason, when they brought over Aaron Rodgers, they also added Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, Mecole Hardman from Kansas City. Zach Wilson came into a terrible situation, as did the young quarterback before him, Sam Darnold. They both walked into lackluster running games, receiving cores who weren't necessarily proven, but were young enough to prove themselves. Offensive line play shoddy. As of recently, the Jets put together a pretty damn good defense that can win you some games if you just don't turn the ball over. And it's hard to say don't put the ball in Zach Wilson's hands, but it's hard not to.
I mean, the dude couldn't play dead in the horror movie.
When you can't run the ball. I feel like putting it all on Zach Wilson is just masking the problem. Because if you bench Zach Wilson, then what? Is the next quarterback just going to come in and be able to fling the ball all over the yard? I don't think that's going to happen. He's still got to learn how to run the ball. The receivers got to hit the right routes and get open. O-line got to protect for more than 2-3 seconds. We need something. The hand Zach Wilson was dealt coming in was terrible because he wasn't even dealt a hand. They just gave him the hand Sam Darnold left with. That's exactly what it is. They didn't give Zach Wilson a new hand. They just gave him the hand that Sam Darnold left. Let's look at that hand he was dealt. The Jets' last playoff appearance, 2010. Mark Sanchez led them to that playoff appearance. He left in 2012. Who was their head coach then? Rex Ryan. Since then, 2013, Geno Smith. 2014, Mike Vick. 2015, Geno Smith bench, Vick leaves, Ryan Fitzpatrick comes in. 2016, Ryan Fitzpatrick starts 14, Bryce Petty played or started 6. 2017, Josh McCown started 13, Bryce Petty played or started in 4. 2018, Sam Darnold drafted and started 13. Josh McCown played or started in 4. 2019, Sam Darnold, Luke Falk, Trevor Siemian all played or started. 2020, Joe Flacco starts 5 games. Sam Darnold starts 12. 2021, Zach Wilson is drafted and started 13 games. Mike White played or started in 4. Joe Flacco played or started in 2. Josh Johnson, who recently signed with the Ravens, played or started in 3. 2022, Zach Wilson started 9. Mike White started 4. Joe Flacco started 5. And here we are, 2023. Zach Wilson has started all 3 games so far. Before Garrett Wilson going over 1,000 yards receiving in 2022, their last 1,000-yard receiver was Brandon Marshall in 2015, 8 years ago. That same year, Eric Decker went over 1,000. Chris Ivory went over 1,000 yards rushing. Fitzmagic, I think, went over 3,500 yards passing. That was probably their last solid team. That just, reading that off, is the inconsistency at the quarterback position. Now looking at the rosters they've compiled since 2013, after Mark Sanchez left, having Geno at quarterback 2013. Chris Ivory, they got Jeremy Curley, Santonio Holmes towards the end of his career. That big year, 2015, they had Chris Ivory, Brandon Marshall towards the end of his career. Eric Decker, he wasn't a scrub receiver. He could go out and put up some numbers. He came over from Denver. 2017, 2018, they had Robbie Anderson, Quincy Enunwa. He was a good young receiver they had at the time. But at this time, you look at since 2012, 2013, 2014, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, Those are all years, no 1,000-yard rusher, no 1,000-yard receiver. There was 1 year, 2016 I believe it was, Quincy Enunwa came close to 1,000 yards, but that was it. They had guys like Matt Forte come in towards the tail end of their career, and they couldn't do it. They had Frank Gore, 2020. He made do with that lackluster offensive line that the Jets organization gave him. I read all this to say this, and I'm going to bring this to an end. If we're going to fault Zach Wilson, we have to fault the organization as a whole first. Like I said, the hand he has is the same hand that the quarterback before him had, and he produced the exact same thing. Maybe it's not the talent that they're putting in at the quarterback position. Maybe it's what's around the quarterback. Maybe it's the coaching. I can definitely tell you it's probably the front office. 2010 was your last playoff appearance. Since 2010, you haven't made the playoffs. 13 years. The amount of head coaches, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, linemen, DBs that have come through there. And you haven't amassed one roster to sniff the playoffs. Even with an extra wild card spot, you can't sneak in there? Come on. With Zach Wilson, I'll say this. I'm sure there's a situation out there better for him in the NFL. But bringing in a young quarterback to a young coaching staff with a young receiving core, everybody trying to find their footing in the man's world that is the NFL. The blind leading the blind. One blind man fell, and he took everybody down with him. You can't fault that one blind man. Who the fuck is leading them? Who put them up to this? Who put them in this position to look this bad? The NFL talent, the talent in the NFL is the top 1%. We know this for a fact. So the fact that they can come out year after year as an organization and put together lackluster seasons year after year after year, whose fault is that? Whose fault is that? Because Zach Wilson wasn't there when you had that sorry-ass squad 2013, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19. He wasn't there for that. But yet them same quarterbacks came and went with lackluster results. Geno in Seattle doing the damn thing. Ryan Fitzpatrick played better literally everywhere else. Sam Darnold, he'll never get the opportunity to be a starter again. But he's a solid backup. He can maintain a spot on the roster. He couldn't do jack for the Jets. And now here we are looking at Zach Wilson, another quarterback not doing a damn thing for the Jets. And we calling Zach Wilson the problem. He's not exempt by any means, but he's a small part. This problem is bigger than him. And another thing, New York, no young quarterback should be put in a position to start for any New York football team, period. The pressure is immense. That fan base will eat you alive. And they football teams ain't won jack. The Giants been sorry as hell since their last Super Bowl. And like we just went over, the Jets been sorry. It's a bigger problem in New York. Something going on. Zach Wilson, I hope you land on your feet after this. Get the hell out of town so people can see that you not the problem. That defense already wants you out there. The head coach is doing the right thing, sticking by you, because I think he sees you not the problem. That front office need to look in the mirror. But Rob Saleh, he probably going to lose his job sooner than later. I can't imagine they're going to be too patient. Terrific defensive mind, though. You don't get drafted into the NFL, #1 overall, being that sorry. I would hope. But we could only hope. That defense shouldn't be saying bench Zach. They should be saying Woody Johnson, quit, leave, resign, bye, sayonara, hit the road. We don't need you no more. Jack, bye. You ain't did shit for us since 2010. He might need to go. Zach Wilson, we praying for you, my boy. Pull it together. Jets got to face the challenge of Kansas City this week. Luckily, it's a home game. I think the Jets can get them because that defense comes to play. That front 6, 7, they gonna get you to where you need to be. Zach Wilson, don't air shit out. If they tell you throw it deep, check that bitch down. Breece Hall want touches. Michael Carter want touches. Give him touches. By God, give him the touches. Don't air that bitch out. Don't turn it over. The Jets have the rare team layout right now with that defense that they might be able to win a couple games just off a few field goals. Kicker might have to put up 15 points if that defense can hold the other offense to 0. That does also mean in the offseason you're going to have to go get a quarterback because, yeah. But that was that. This is this. Let me know what y'all think. Like, comment, subscribe. Jaron DSB. There's a problem in New York, and we just solved it. I'm out.